Okay. Good afternoon, 765 Air Base Squadron. Please silence all electronic devices as our event will begin shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the playing of the Portuguese and American national anthems. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Welcome to the 765th Air Base Squadron Commander's Call. I am Elma Rosa from Real Property Section, and I am honored to be your MC for today. Today, with us is our hosts for today's event, Commander, 765th Air Base Squadron, Lieutenant Colonel Benjamin Nost. Director of Operations, Major Jenny Wack. Senior Enlisted Leader, Master Sergeant Travis Ringer. 65th Air Base Squadron First Sergeant, Senior Master Sergeant Joseph Williams. We would also like to extend a warm welcome to all flight chiefs, supervisors, and the proud members of our squadron. At this time, we welcome our safety rep for comments.
Good afternoon, y'all. That's Sergeant Morris. I'm actually the alternate safety rep for the squadron. Sergeant Cardenas is the primary. He's out right now doing the actual safety inspections this week. A few of the things that he's been reporting back to me and telling me that are common with the squadron and all the facilities that he goes to are the inspectable equipment inside of the facility, which is your fire extinguishers, and if you have an eye wash in your facility. He said that a lot of the findings in just about every building is they're finding that fire extinguishers are not signed off monthly, and even if they are, they still have to be in date, so that that fire extinguisher actually has a expiration date on it. So even though you're signing it off every month like you're required, the actual expiration date still needs to be valid as well. And another thing that is in the buildings that is the eye wash stations. They have to be inspected every month, and if they're not working correctly, you need to get with C customer service and have those prepared as well. So those are the two main ones. But another thing that he's finding is an abundance of fluorescent light bulbs. So if you're a facility manager, or if you just see fluorescent light bulbs laying around your facility, get with your facility manager. Make sure they get with CE customer service and get those to the hazardous waste point for the base, and that way we don't have any extra hazardous waste just kind of laying around in work centers. That's pretty much what they're mainly finding with the safety inspection. But these are all things that we should be doing on a regular basis. So just keep in mind whenever they're coming around that's one of the hot things they're looking for, but that's something we should be taking care of on a regular basis. And that's pretty much all I have at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Technical Sergeant Morris. Next, Lieutenant Colonel Nost, would you like to introduce our next briefer?
All right, so next slide, please. It's a little bit, Alice is going to talk to us about active shooter. I wanted to give you a little bit of context as to why we're talking about this now and why it's important that you pay attention. So I was having a conversation with IG a while back about what the exercise kind of schedule is going to look like for the year. One of which was like, hey, we should do an active shooter. It's one of the requirements, we should do it. So we were discussing that, and I overheard some other comment about, why do we even do that here? Like, this is a super safe place. I don't even have guns, right? Like, this is not really a threat here. We should do hurricane and other stuff. So it bothered me for a couple reasons. Mainly is as soon as you say that, or people that say that have no idea what they're talking about. So January 20th, 2017, we had just moved to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, kind of outside Dayton, Ohio. We lived in a small town. We chose to live kind of out in the country. It's super safe. It's a farm town, so it's a small school. All the kids K through 12 go to one building. So we kind of like the small town atmosphere for the kids. My daughter started kindergarten there. My son was in preschool. I was at work. My phone started blowing up with all the school auto messages about school pickup and snow days and stuff. And they're like, come pick up your kid in the park. And I was like, some high school kid is playing a prank on the message or something. And then my wife starts calling, but I was in a meeting, so I step out. And then on the news in the break room, there had been a school shooting, which back in the States, unfortunately happens, quite often. But it was local news, and the lady reporting was standing in front of my kid's school right where I dropped him off that morning. So just kind of goes to show you that even when you think you're, completely safe, and it's not going to happen here, it's never going to happen, guess what, it does. So obviously my kids are fine. Not all of the kids were, though. So that changed people's life forever that day. So that's why I wanted to have this, briefing here. Should you go home and be terrified and think that we're going to have a shooter at work? No, I'm not trying to scare anybody. Is it worth 10 minutes of your time now to, pay attention so if something does happen, you know what to do? And then at some point during the course of the year, when we have the exercise, to take it seriously for 20, 30 minutes to make sure we got it stored away? Absolutely. So with that, Alex, over to you. Thanks.
All right. Good afternoon. Thank you, Colonel Nose. Intro. All right, so we're gonna get into it. Like you said, we're just gonna barely be dipping our toes in the water here on active shooter stuff as far as that goes today. But there'll be more stuff coming down the pipe. I'm excited for the anti-terrorism program on the side of the house. We got more anti-terrorism RAMs, programs, things like that. We're gonna get ATR certified, so each unit's gonna have their own anti-terrorism rep that we're gonna train. They're gonna work with us. So a lot of good stuff coming down the pipe as far as active shooter, anti-terrorism training, things like that goes. So it's gonna be good. All right, so I'm gonna get right into it. Is there a clicker behind me? Okay. Okay, slide. Thanks. Okay, so we're getting right into it. So we're gonna talk about recognizing the signs. Now, before I get into it, I'm not saying that your coworkers are active shooters, right? This is just some things to look towards because insider threat is a real threat. Being on a military installation, there has been incidences in the past of military officers even shooting up their commands. So something to look for. So I know there's something we harp on a lot in the military is get to know your people. Really get to know your people, right? If someone's having a bad day, it doesn't mean they're an active shooter. If someone's emotionally upset, again, doesn't mean they're an active shooter. But if there's a repeated pattern of sympathizing with, I don't know, there was one of those horrible terrorist attacks in Germany at the Christmas markets or something, and someone's kind of like sympathizing with it. It's kind of weird. That's kind of a red flag. That should raise some of the alarms in your head, things like that. And again, so if things like that, alert your supervisor. You could reach out to us at the AT office, or even you could do an anonymous report to the BDOC, and that'd be a Crime Stop notification. Slide, please. So hopefully you read some of the things there. We got some more you can read. So just a couple more examples of different things to look for, right? Problems at home. They smell like alcohol at work. Drug abuse, things of that nature. Or maybe you guys changed a policy at work and someone's like super against it. Again, doesn't mean they're an active shooter, but it's just a repeated behavior patterns like that could be indicators, something to look for. Give you a second to read that. So also for active shooter, right? We all think guns, semi-automatic weapons. Yes, like Colonel Nose said, on the island, weapons aren't a huge threat to us, right? It's relatively safe here. We're in FPCon Alpha Plus. You guys know FPCon Alpha Plus, and we fall in line with our Portuguese counterparts as far as our FPCon goes. But things that are potential threat, right? Someone could be using a knife, a machete, an axe. Usually active shooters are going for mass casualties. So propane bomb, that you can make that with normal household supplies, things you can get at Home Depot or something. So again, it is a real threat. It just might not always be weapons. So something to consider. Okay, hopefully you got to read some of the stuff on the slide. We'll go to slide, please. Okay. So you have three options when there's an incident or active shooter incident happening: escape, barricade, or fight. So I'm just going to briefly talk about each scenario, kind of what those things entail. So escape, of course, if you have an avenue that you can get out of the area safely, right? It's away from the shooter, commit to it and go for it, right? When you're going for that escape route, of course, take as many people with you as possible. One key thing, and it might sound kind of messed up, but if there's somebody wounded, don't try and take them with you, right? This is going to, jeopardize your life. If they're wounded and you can move them to a safe location, by all means do it. But if they can't move, unfortunately, you got to press on. So you can get outside, call law enforcement, and help resolve the issue. That's the seriousness of the situation, because if you stay there and try and help them, you might lose your life, and you might have decreased the chances of calling law enforcement, identifying the shooter, and just helping it that much more. So I know in your gut it feels wrong, but it's something to think about as someone's critically wounded and you can't move them. Fire alarms. So seems like a good idea, right? Activate the fire alarm, let everyone know, like, hey, get out of the building. But we do fire drills. We'll go through stairwells, exits, and that creates a funnel. And that could be something that an active shooter can look for and go for mass casualties in that way. They can plant a bomb, pipe bomb in that area. They can perch up on a location overlooking an exit or something when a fire alarm's going. So refrain from pulling the fire alarm. And if the fire alarm is going off and you hear shots fired and stuff, try and go not in the direction which you normally would if you decide to try and escape. So let's say you make it outside. If you do make it outside, of course, if there's law enforcement, you encounter them, always keep your hands up because unfortunately we have to assume that everyone's a suspect because there's been times active shooters will try and embed themselves in the crowd and just pretend that they're another bystander and try and get away that way. So you might get roughed up a little bit and you might get some commands and stuff from law enforcement, but that's only to protect ourselves and try and resolve the issue as quickly as possible. So don't take it personally, but always keep your hands up, listen to all commands if you do engage law enforcement when you come outside. Say you do come outside and law enforcement's not there, do not get in your car and try and drive away. Seems like a great idea, but you could be blocking the parking lot, impeding the law enforcement response again. And then again, you're just going to be another thing that we have to divert our attention to, assuming that you could potentially be a suspect, right? And we're going to have to put resources to chasing you. So refrain from going to your car and trying to leave the scene. But of course, seek shelter, seek a safe location, call 112 or the law enforcement desk and notify law enforcement. Yeah, I think I got all that. Next slide, please. Okay, so you can't escape. So that would be, the shooter sounds really close. It just doesn't seem like a good idea. You're maybe on the second or third floor of a building. You're going to barricade. Of course, hide in an area that's away from the shooter's view. I'm pretty sure most of the buildings on base don't have the little windows in them. Do any of your buildings have windows in the doors? No? Okay. If you did have a little window in your door, of course, cover that so someone can't see in. Furniture, block the door, barricade it, and then try and make any kind of barricade inside the room as much as possible to protect yourselves. You do not want to bunch up and all hide in one location. So say there's 8 people in the room. All 8 of you don't want to hide in one location of a desk because in the event that a shooter does get in, they can throw a pipe bomb in or they'll start shooting in that direction and you guys didn't even have a chance, right? At least if you're spread out, if the shooter comes in, they're going to direct their attention towards one area. The other people in the room have a chance to incapacitate that shooter. So spread out in those situations. Another one on there. If you're in a room, obviously, if it's the first floor, situation dictates. If you can get out the window safely, if you determine that's an option, by all means do it. But if you're on the second floor or something like that, or you determine getting out the first floor window, you don't want to try it. It's not safe. You'll get a piece of paper, write the room number you're in, if you know, possibly room number of people. So it could be like 8 people, one wounded, room 815. You put that on the window. So when we set up 360, we're like, okay, there's 8 people, there's 1 wounded in here. Okay, we know we got that. So that's something to think about. Again, you don't have to leave the windows open. You can shut the blinds, kind of thing. If the shooter gets outside, what have you. Okay, and then the last little tidbit on this one: don't open the door until law enforcement. Now, of course, right, you're probably thinking a shooter could just say, hey, it's law enforcement, open up, all secure. So if you're still not sure, right, we're going to give you the all clear. But if you're still not sure, call 112, the BDOC, call 911, law enforcement desk again, and verify, hey, there's someone at my door. They're saying that it's all clear. Can I authenticate who it is? They're going to tell you who's at the door. Hey, is this Tech Sergeant such and such? Is this Senor whoever, right? And then you can authenticate that way. So, and then, of course, silence all phones, things like that. Be as quiet as possible when you're barricading. You can call law enforcement, and if you feel like the shooter's too close, and you feel that you talking might give your location away, you can just let law enforcement know, hey, my name's such and such. I'm in this building, room this. I think there's an active shooter going on. I can't talk. And they'll either tell you, hey, just leave the line open. We'll just have the line open. You'll just have your phone running so we can listen. Because if we know where your room number is and we hear shots, that gives us a huge advantage of where to go. Or the law enforcement will give you directions as to different options of what you can do. All right, slide please. Okay, fight. So this one's the last resort. Of course, again, situation dictates for this one. Everyone has different training. Everyone has different experiences. So you have to make a decision. But if you do decide to fight, you need to 100% commit to it. Because that hesitation is what gets people killed, unfortunately. So find an improvised weapon, right? Something heavy, one of those foldable chairs, a heavy lamp, something you can use for blunt force. The whole idea is to use physical aggression and incapacitate that individual from harming people, whether it be with a knife, a gun, or whatever weapon they're trying to use. Your goal is to incapacitate them. Yeah, you have to do what you have to do to survive. It's you or them, right? So if you're barricaded in a room and they come in, that's it. It's you or them, right? A pen to the eye, even something that minimal. Just a small anecdote. I always travel with pens, not just to fill out the custom forms on the plane, but if something was to go down, that's what I'm going to use, a pen, because you can always travel with a pen, but just a small extra thing with that. Okay, next slide, please. Notifications. So touched on it a little bit. Once you're in a safe area, always try and get in contact with first responders. I'm going to explain how we respond. So how we're going to respond is direct to threat. So if it was just me, I just happen to be doing a walking patrol in that area and we get the dispatch, I have to go in by myself. That's how we're trained. We go to where the sounds of the gunfire is, wherever it is, until the threat's eliminated. When law enforcement responds, don't try and jump on them, hang on them. I think I'm getting ahead of myself with the slide, actually. I am. I'm going to pause that for a second. We'll get into it more. So when you call, things to provide up on the slide there. So your location, shooter location, number of shooters, if you know, physical description would be huge. Types and numbers of weapons. If I can bring my props, I try to. All right, so this is AK-47. You don't need to know what kind of weapon it is. If you do, more power to you, right? But in this instance, you just say, hey, it's a long gun. It looks like a rifle. It's red. That's all we need, right? Same thing. I got a pistol with me. All right, this is an M9 Beretta. If you know that's an M9 Beretta, that's great. But hey, it looks like a small handgun. It's red. That's all we need to know. That's more than enough info. So these are some of our training aids we use when we do our training scenarios and things like that. I think they're cool and stuff. All right. And then, of course, number of potential victims so we can prep our medical response and stuff like that. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so I kind of got ahead of myself here. So law enforcement response. Again, always keep your hands visible. I can't stress it enough. You are going to be treated as a potential suspect, nothing personal, until we figure out the situation, and then everyone will be released, things like that. As we're responding, law enforcement, I'm speaking of, don't jump and hang on law enforcement. Oh, help me, please. You're just getting in your way. We're going to push you out of the way. That's what we're trying to do. We have to go and eliminate the threat. We don't have time. If you're injured, I'm sorry, we can't stop. So you'll get directions as you see law enforcement coming towards you. Move down the hallway to the right, and there'll be other people staged to push you out of the building, and then it'll go that way. So again, don't open the doors until you receive the all clear notification. Law enforcement identifies themselves. Completely okay if you're unsure. Just call 112, 911, law enforcement desk, and authenticate that way to make sure you're good to open the door again. And I put it on there again. Listen to all follow-on commands by law enforcement. I can't stress it enough. Just listen to the commands, because we're also thinking about our lives as well while we're responding. So for the safety of everybody. Okay, next slide. Any questions? Again, that was just really quick. Just dipping our toes in the water. We're going to be doing more stuff, like Lieutenant said. There will be, I believe, in the exercise coming down, I think there'll be an active shooter inject. Don't quote me on it. Or at least they might come around and ask some questions, just kind of on the stuff I covered today. I'm like, hey, in this scenario, what would you do? How do you barricade, kind of thing? And of course, reach out to us at any time in our office. We're more than happy to come out and do training with you guys. So if you want us to come, I don't know, try and rob your building or shoot it up or whatever, we're definitely down to do that. And get some reps in, so it's more muscle memory and you kind of shake the dust off. No questions? Good? Okay, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Staff Sergeant Coaster. Next, we will welcome our first sergeant, Senior Master Sergeant Williams, to the stage for comments.
Hi, how's everyone doing? Good to be here. Thank you for having me. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to go over a few notes. Next slide. So Efmp Processing, for our active duty members who are who have follow-on assignments already, the process has changed significantly to where you need to submit all your documentation for medical processing pretty much upon the time that you get your assignment notification. So if you haven't done that at this point, you're behind the power curve. It used to be you sent all your documents to your installation EFMP office, 2 or 3 weeks, boom, done. Then you got your orders. Now we've decided that it's easier to take that right away from the installation. AFPC is now a hub. They're going to process your documents. So some details on there. I think I just put it in a nutshell. The point is, if you have a follow-on right now and you haven't started your paperwork, you need to get on it yesterday. Next slide, please, because you will extend. My DROS is extended right now for 30 days because I did what I was supposed to, but just keep that in mind. COVID. So again, for the uniform wearers, are we tracking the EU COVID digital passports and what they are? Does everybody know what they are? Do we know what they are? Sergeant Stone, you know what they are? No? Okay. So there's a document you're gonna get for the EU. It's kind of like a passport, right? So all your data, all your tests are going to be loaded on there. So you're no longer going to be required to have to take a COVID test when traveling within the EU and the UK. It's been a long time coming. We've been working with the HAS. They've been supporting us greatly in getting us this document. I will say that it's kind of coming in batches. We have the first group of members resubmitted the data to the IDMT office and working with the HAS. So a lot of you, the documents are going to get sent to the superintendent, and then you're going to receive them. And for those of you that didn't receive it, the IDMTs are aware and they're working it. So there's no need for you to reach out to them. They're already trying to gather your data and get you hooked up. And also to go along with this, the IDMT office is going to start offering COVID boosters. I believe starting on the 28th for anyone who ever needs their booster shot. Just get a hold of IDMT office, call Elia or Sergeant Cardona, and they'll hook you up. Next slide, please. Mustaches, my favorite. So most of us are aware what happens normally around the March timeframe. There's some games that go on in units with mustache march. What's wrong, sir? You're not gonna grow one? Yeah, I'm talking to you. So for those of you who are going to decide to grow mustaches in March, just remember there's a few rules that go along with it. Took it out of the AFI. Not going to read it verbatim, but basically it can't grow below your lip line and it can't exceed the this little portion of your mouth here. I've seen some pretty raunchy ones, some wild ones. So if you're going to participate and have fun with that, just also police each other and make sure that we look good and don't get offended. Just fix it, right? Because it's just for fun. We're trying to have a good time. Next slide, please. So I have a quiz. I wanted this to be interactive, so bear with me, and I hope everyone passes. So I'm going to have a question, and then there's going to be an image, and then you have to say yes or no. Okay. So are the following mustaches within regs? It looks good on her, but no, they're not. So women are not authorized to have mustaches as of yet. Nope. And then if we can go back, please. I don't know what to tell you. Wilfred Brimley's mustache clearly exceeds past his bottom lip and the corners of his mouth. So you can't walk around looking like the oatmeal guy, if you guys know who that is. I don't know if he's famous in Portugal, but in the States, he's the oatmeal guy. Next, please. Okay, again, there's another quiz question here. Are the following mustaches within regs? Go. Of course they are. They're perfect. Perfect. Next. Okay, that's all I got. So if anyone has any questions, hit me up after, and I'll gladly see what I can do for you. Thank you.
All right, I'll try to make this somewhat quick, but I think there's still a couple important things we need to hit. Next slide, please. All right, so I preached last time about the DEOC survey, and I asked people to take it. The reason being is that's pretty much one of the first things that gets handed down between commanders. We talk about turning over and continuity, that's a way you can help us give feedback. First thing I got when I took command was the DEOC survey from my predecessor. So we've done ours now that'll be given to my successor. So we have the results, and I wanted to share that with you. It's not just for my own benefit. It helps me make decisions, but I wanted you all to see what everyone collectively kind of thinks we're at with a number of issues. So this slide is, all of these are traits that the Air Force says are good things, right? So these are positive characteristics. And so big bars are good, right? Next slide. So these are kind of the high level results. Each of these specific areas has a number of kind of sub questions in it that ask more specific parts of that component. So for high morale example, there's a number of questions that talk about specific parts of morale and why people feel the way they do. So looking at all of the results, of those sub questions, as well as the comments that people were able to produce if they wanted to. Again, all anonymous, so I don't have any specifics on which work sections any of this information came from. But just kind of interpreting the results and reading the comments, I tried to pick out some trends or kind of reading between the lines on what I think is kind of the root cause for some of these things. So two of them on here, the high morale and fair treatment, they're not bad, but I'd like them to be higher. Obviously, the farther to the right on this chart is good. So those are, of the positive characteristics we're trying to incorporate, those are our two weakest areas. And I think what it boiled down to is lack of opportunities. In the morale case, it's lack of opportunities. A lot of people mentioned COVID, stuff that we used to do as a squadron or different work sections used to do that we haven't been able to do as much in the past year or two. That's part of it. And everyone's busy and everyone has different schedules. It's hard to get an event that works for everybody. So kind of lack of opportunities in that regard. And then the fair treatment one, what I kind of picked out was a lot of like training opportunities, and not just like your official formal training, kind of check the box stuff, but professional development, other opportunities to kind of grow in whatever your craft is. And so there's a lot of comments reflecting that. So I think how we get better in those two areas and make those positive areas better is by increasing those opportunities. We'll talk more about that later. Slide. All right, so these are the bad ones. These are the bad characteristics that you don't want. So small bars are better on this chart, right? So of the things we're trying to avoid, the things that stuck out to me, next slide, go ahead and build it. I kind of tied, just reading a lot of the comments, I tied the stress level to the morale. So a lot of the comments would kind of mention both those things in one thing. So I think those two things are correlated. So what we're going to do to kind of get after the morale, I think will help in the stress category. The third and fourth one there, I kind of attribute to lack of understanding. What I mean by that is there seems to be just a lack of people knowing each other, and part of that is having time to spend together, and just understanding where other people are coming from. Now, if there's any just pure racial discrimination happening, obviously I don't have details on what those are. That's a different story, and it's absolutely unacceptable. But I think a good deal of this, just based on the comments, is not just a black versus white or any other race. It's a lot of even amongst local nationals, comments about people who are from the Azores versus people who are from the mainland, and all these different kind of categories of people and different cliques of people that kind of drive people apart. So trying to kind of bridge the gap and build understanding amongst people, where they come from, what they're like, both at work and after work, I think will help in that case. And number two, that one, I don't have any great information on if there is any true sexual harassment going on. I hope there's not. If there is, we're going to weed it out and we're going to get rid of it as fast as we can. But I think a lot of it, based on the specific answers and comments, is just inappropriate jokes. Knowing your audience, being situationally aware of what you're saying, and even if you intend it completely, it's harmless, it may be perceived very differently to somebody else. So in this case, perception is reality. So I think that's what's driving a lot of this one specifically. So again, there's not one thing we can do to just magically clean all this up. But after I looked through this and kind of thought about it for a little bit, I think there's a couple initiatives and things we can get after that are going to help in these areas. So slide. All right. So what we're going to try to do to fix some of these things is I had a couple ideas. One is set up working groups. I've seen this work a few other places. The goal of the working groups is not to be a leadership driven thing. It's kind of a grassroots effort. So not only are these working groups going to be from across the different work centers and across the flights, but all levels of the organization. So it's not just the flight chief sitting in a room. That's called a staff meeting. I don't need that. I need people at all different levels of the organization having a chance to give input and have their kind of voices heard and help solve these problems and exercise some of that informal leadership. So you don't have to be a flight chief or a certain grade, to exercise leadership in the squadrons. That's what the working groups are for, is to kind of give, folks an avenue that have good ideas to make a difference and be heard. So right now there's 3 of them. I'm open to suggestions if I've missed something. But the first one's professional development. And so the goal of that is, again, everyone has different formal training requirements. It's not just, formal training. It's going to be other professional development, opportunities, AFIT courses, civilian certifications from the outside that can help people both in their military careers at the base and outside as well. But the goal is to identify what those opportunities are. I hear it all the time. It's in all the comments. People want more opportunities. So tell me what those opportunities are. Let's put a dollar amount on it or a resource on it, whether you need money, whether you need time to do it. Tell me what that is. And then my job is to make sure that you have the time and the money to get those things done. It's not going to be immediate, but the goal of that professional development working group is to be able to, stay on top of it and keep it a priority for them to make sure when we do our budget submission, all of those training things need to be in the X plan and be in the budget so that we can start to get ahead of it versus, hey, I got this really good idea. I want to go do this next month. Well, I don't have any money for that because we submitted our budget 8 months ago. So that's the goal for that, is to get ahead of it. It's not going to be immediate. And again, I really want this to be a civilian driven thing so that it can outlast me. It can outlast all the uniform wearers here. This is kind of a grassroots bottom up thing that folks at all levels can take ownership of. MWR, that's to get after the morale piece, getting to know each other and just spending time together. I hear stories about all the things that people used to do here. I don't really think we have any excuse not to do those things that we used to, right? So I don't want to hear any more that we used to do this and it was really fun. Well, let's do it. Let's do it now. Yes, we have COVID, but I can guarantee you that within about a month or so, the COVID rules and restrictions are going to be a lot different than they are now. So by the time the weather gets nice, it's going to be a whole different game as far as the environment we're in. That's true for us in Germany, and hearing it all across the EU from a lot of senior leaders are kind of just waiting to pull the trigger on pulling back some of those protocols and things. Next time we have one of these, we'll have a full room. You won't be 6 feet apart, sitting awkwardly with no one around you. So I think we can start planning those things now. That working group is going to get together again. Your entire plan is there's lots of money out there to do events. So the Booster Club doesn't have to raise all of it. This is not taking the place of the Booster Club. It's to work with the Booster Club so that everyone's ideas can be heard. There's a lot of great ideas out there. We got a certain budget of money in different categories that we can use to help get after those things. So let's plan it ahead. If you plan ahead, if you advertise it, people have a chance to get there, and we can really think through what kind of events we need that everybody can participate in. There's going to be very few things that all 291 of us can do at one time. Everyone has different schedules, but there's probably a number of things we can do that would cater to different parts of the squadron that would be beneficial. 715 move. This affects those that are going to move to 715 soon as part of the new CE compound down there. Lessons learned from the T100 move, for those of you that are going through that now, is that there's a lot of stuff that should have been done like a year in advance to try to get ready for that. So that's the goal of this working group, is to think through all those little things that are making Lieutenant Lamont's life a nightmare at the moment for T100 and try to avoid those things for 715. And then town halls. So there's going to be some additional forums. Commander calls are great. So at the end of this, my slides, there's going to be a thing that says questions. I guarantee not a single person is going to ask me a question because they never do. Even if I beg, they'll ask a question. So there's going to be other forums, like more of a town hall, just very informal, where people can just come and just talk about what's on their mind. They can ask questions. They can get information directly from leadership, whether it's me or Colonel Wallace. Whoever needs to be there can be there. Again, it's a very low threat environment. The rumor mill is strong on the island. I know that. So this is kind of a way to cut through some of that. So if you have questions, you hear things, you can just come direct to me in an informal format to talk through things and get the information that I know. All right. Slide, please. All right. So that was kind of the wrap up from the DOCS. So every time we do these, I try to have a kind of a touch point to talk about where we're at as far as our mission goes. So one thing I added to the slide, you'll see the slide. It's the same one you've seen last time. If you're new, it'll be a little bit new to you. But one thing I added on the top is that's our mission statement. And I recognized I've done a poor job of actually including that in a lot of the communication I have. That hasn't changed. I didn't make that up. That's not new. That's always been our mission statement since I got here. I don't think it's very well advertised. So I just wanted to give that some visibility and include it on this slide as part of kind of our, one of our main reasons for existing. So if you're new and you have not seen this slide before, basically what it shows, it's the fly, fight, win, cycle and all that stuff in the middle. That's Lodge's Air Base, and that's what we enable on the left side and the right side. And those are some of our customers. This case, it's the B2, so Bomber Task Force. There's all sorts of other customers we have. There's just a lot of good B2 pictures on the internet, so it's easy to stick in there. But we have lots of other customers that come through here, and it's important for the folks that work up at the top of the hill to understand what's happening at the bottom of the hill. Sometimes to understand why having these facilities and providing these services is important. Down at the bottom, those are our three kind of lines of effort, three goals. I have those since I've been here. Next slide. So we'll talk about kind of where we're at with each one of those goals. So main things, this is not an all-encompassing list of stuff that we do, but it's kind of some of the main things that they're going to be important, kind of set the priorities. Firefighter interoperability. We're verging, complete on that in terms of, I think we have like 39 members of the firefighters are now have their European accreditation, which is huge because that improves interoperability. It helps them work better with our off-base partners. And that's from the firefighter certification as well as like the EMT equivalent certification. A lot of good work there, and I think it's going to pay dividends. T100 move, it's getting there. It's got a few quirks, but we're about there. The DOCS is done. Obviously, we talked about that. Right sizing laundry and postal hours, we adjusted that. So that was a good move that we made. It gives our postal team some of their time back to get through some of the back shop work they have to do. Laundry, that's a good case study and kind of always talk about data-driven decisions. That was a data-driven decision. Look at when the customers came and adjusted hours so it worked better for both us and the customers. And then torque operating hours. So that was kind of a new thing as of last time. Now we're fully operational. So you can come here for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and beyond. So that's a good news story. Next slide. So those are things that are kind of done. We can check off the list. Everything else on there is stuff that we've been working that we're going to continue to work. So these are still remain priorities for us. Troop training project. I know we're working through trying to help out the fire department. And have a joint project between ops and fire to get them what they need. Master plan finalization. So that little plan that we worked up, 5-6 months ago has been getting some traction. So a bunch of people with stars on their uniform were here a couple weeks ago. It's going to be a bunch more come back, hopefully mid to end of March. To do another visit to kind of finalize what the future state of lodges is going to be from a facility standpoint. And part of that is what services do we need to be able to provide. Bench stock recapitalization, that's going to be on this list for a long time, but it's going to be a priority. So I know we have priority A's identified. We funded a little bit of it. And again, that's stuff that we need to have on hand, so that when, all those, the last slide, the aircraft coming through, when something breaks, we can still continue to support them. Next slide. We got a bunch of new stuff we're working too. So we talked about the working groups and training day. Training day, I envision being part of the professional development thing. I've already talked to Colonel Wallace about finding a day probably once a month, and we'll figure out the details. We'll get together and talk, but he is on board with us kind of taking a down day once a month to take care of a lot of the things that we normally just don't have time to do or space to do. So the goal is to give you all some breathing room. So we'll figure out exactly what that looks like. Whether we, close the torque for a couple hours in the afternoon when it's not busy anyway, to do some team building events or do some other things. Whether it's ops going emergencies only to take care of some in-house, shop cleanup type stuff. Whatever it is, there's a lot of things we can do at that time, but Colonel Wallace is fully on board with giving us the ability to kind of throttle back one day a month and spend some time kind of taking care of ourselves and getting the house in order and not always in the customer service mode. CPS training, I added as a new thing and I already crossed it off because they've already done it. So this was an idea that came up after last commander's call that they've already executed, which is fantastic. That was getting some refresher local national supervisor training for local nationals that may not have had it for a number of years. I got good feedback from that. I think that was beneficial, just to make sure everybody understands what the rules are, what people's rights are, and how to navigate different situations that we have. MPS system evolution is a fancy term for the Air Force shoving a bunch of new stuff down our throat without any kind of guidance or training whatsoever. So MPS is kind of at the forefront of that. Taking one for the team, trying to figure out, what in the heck we're supposed to do with all these new systems. My FSS, my eval, my, pick an ending. Everything's new and changing with very little guidance. It's a very dynamic environment, so please be patient with them, but they're working as hard as they can to get those things implemented and in place for us. Contingency building. So part of that master plan finalization is what do we do with all these old dorms that we have? So I think the end result for that is going to be, again, it's not totally final yet, but there is a very big appetite from Air Force senior leaders to keep that capability here at Lodges. So I would expect at least one, if not multiple, of what the old the birdhouses we call them, all these old dorms we have, to get kind of revitalized and turned into an actual contingency building program here, similar to what they have at Marone. That's also part of the group. So that's kind of on the horizon. I expect more to come on that. And then on the right side, as far as connecting the dots, meaning keeping our eye on the mission, newcomers briefings. So that's both for military side. We're going to set up some classified briefings. So when you go to the newcomers brief, afterward, you should be able to get a classified brief that talks through what all we do here, what missions we support, kind of what our reason for being here is, to kind of help you understand why you got stationed on this little island in the middle of the ocean. And we're going to come up with a unclassified version that we can give to local nationals as well, just to talk through, what's our, what are we supporting here and why it's important. There's not going to be very many newcomers on the local national side, but we'll start offering those kind of routinely. Also, just kind of intel updates. They do that at Ramstein. I think it's a good idea. We should do it here. When there's major events in the world, let's have some kind of town hall similar to talk about what does that mean for us, what's going on, just to kind of stay connected with the Air Force mission and how Lodges connects to it. Obviously, right now there's a lot of things to talk about. So figuring out what forum we can do that in, I think that'd be beneficial to kind of understand bigger picture and how we're part of that team. Talked about town halls. That last one there, FIAR is financial something audit readiness, right? ENC is existence and completeness. What that means in the real property world is there is a whole bunch of work to be done to make sure that our books are straight, that we've actually accounted for everything that we have, and we're not accounting for stuff that we don't have, and all the stuff that we have on our books is actually accurate. that sounds like a basic thing, but it's a lot harder than it sounds. And why that's important is getting that right is kind of the baseline for how we get all of our annual operating budget. So a lot of the money we get to operate this base and to maintain what we do comes from that data being correct. So that's a big thing we've been working the past several months. A lot of taskers and mandates coming down, but something we're going to continue to work. So definitely appreciate the real property team staying on top of that. Next. All right, here it is. Who's going to do it? Silence. All right, you're all waiting for the town hall. I shouldn't advertise that. I should have made you ask your questions here. Yes.
Per the town of Lockport support, wondering when you might have the working group finalized and ready to go.
Good question. So I've asked the flight chief to collect volunteers and send that to me. So probably by the end of the week, we'll have who's going to be on the working groups. Again, if this is all news to you and you have never heard of it and you have interest, get with your flight chief. Make sure they know that you want to be part of it. But probably end of this week or next week, and then we'll name a working group leader, and then I'll have a meeting with the working group leader to kind of give my intent, and then it's going to be theirs from then on. Off and running. They get to kind of take the stick. I'm not going to lead it or try to control it. I'll tell them what I need from it, and that's going to be up to them to run with it. So end of this week or next week. Good question. Anything else? Nothing? All right. Let's go to the fun stuff.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Nost. We will now present our Civilian Certificate of Service Awards, recognizing those that have contributed their service in the government of the United States of America. Recipients, when your name is called, please come forward individually. Master Sergeant Ringer, please come forward and join Lieutenant Colonel Nost to recognize our Civilian Service Award recipients. Beginning with 10 years of service, Senhor André Valadão. Congratulations, Senhor Valadão. We will now recognize those who have completed 15 years of service. Senhor Daniel Ptencourt. Senhor Sérgio Cardoso. Congratulations, Senhor Ptencourt and Senhor Cardoso. Next, we will recognize individuals who have completed 20 years of service. Senhora Carla Fernandes. Thank you, Senhora Fernandes. Today, we will recognize the squadron's fourth quarter and annual award winners. These individuals represent some of the group's finest military and civilian professionals. Each nominee has competed and have proven that they truly excel in every way. They exhibited not only superior duty performance, but were involved in the community as well. Each serves as an example of the core values we all share: integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. We will now recognize the winners of the fourth quarter in their respective categories. Winners, when your name is called, please come forward. We will begin with our Category 1 Civilian of the Quarter. The winner for Category 1 Civilian of the Quarter is Senor Justin Gouveia. Thank you, Senor Gouveia. Winner for Category 2 Civilian of the Quarter is Senor Berto Lima. Thank you, Senor Lima. Winner for non-commissioned officer of the fourth quarter is Technical Sergeant Jeffrey Grasso.
So you were also one of our CSU reps. So definitely appreciate your work for that. So as a result, you get this fantastic gift.
Thank you, Sergeant Grasso. Winner for senior non-commissioned officer of the fourth quarter is Master Sergeant Travis Ringer. Thank you, Master Sergeant Ringer. Winner for company grade officer of the fourth quarter is First Lieutenant Ian Lamont. Thank you, Lieutenant Lamont. And finally, the winner for team of the fourth quarter is the Electrical Power Production Team.
I feel unsafe.
Congratulations, Power Pro team. Let's give all our fourth quarter award winners one more round of applause. We will now recognize the annual award winners in their respective categories. Winners, when your name is called, please come forward. We will begin with our Category 1 Civilian of the Year. The winner for Category 1 Civilian of the Year is Senora Ashley Fantasia. Winner for Category 2 Non-Supervisory Civilian of the Year is Senora Andrea Silva. Thank you, Senora Andrea. Winner for Category 2 Supervisory Civilian of the Year is Senor Agostinho Silva. Winner for Category 3, Civilian of the Year is Senor José Areyes. Thank you, Senora Reyes. Winner for Non-Commissioned Officer of the Year is Technical Sergeant Dominic Cagle. Thank you, Sergeant Cagle. Winner for Senior Non-Commissioned Officer of the Year is Master Sergeant Brandon Senahuza, who has already departed. His award will be mailed to him. The winner for Company Grade Officer of the Year is Captain Jordan Castañeda, who has already departed as well. His award will be mailed to him. The winner for Field Grade Officer of the Year, Major Jenny Walk. Thank you, Major Walk. And lastly, Lieutenant Colonel Nost, would like to present a special recognition.
All right, so I got a couple things. You may not know the coins. So these up here don't have any hardware specifically, but I think it's definitely worth mentioning. As far as the functional awards go, I got to read this because the title is really long. So the Air Force Outstanding Civil Engineer Manager of the Year Civilian Technician was Berto Lima, and he's the runner-up for all of USAFE. So if you think about all the number of civil engineer technicians there are in USAFE, to come in runner-up is pretty damn good. So round of applause. Same thing for Grasso. The SAMI, Society of American Military Engineers Goddard Medal. Again, there's a whole lot of NCOs competing for that across the career field, across the command. So being runner-up for that's a pretty big deal. So good work. Slide, please. All right. So this picture is what used to be one of the buildings behind security forces, building 815. There was about 5 of those back there that are no longer there anymore. One of the reasons, when General Olson came here in the summer, he said, hey, start knocking down buildings. He's like, I know we're going to work the plan, we're going to make it official. He's like, but I want you to start knocking down buildings. Let's start the process of kind of cleaning up some of the base now. So once you get at least 2 buildings knocked down by Christmas. I said, okay, got it. So we kind of worked through some of the issues, figured it out. I was up there briefing him an update to the plan in December, and he was like, hey, it's almost Christmas. What's going on? And that day, Captain Castaneda had sent me pictures of what the Dirt Boys had been doing. So I pulled up my phone and I showed him that picture across the table. I was like, hey, sir, this is what's going on at Lodges Field today. And he was pretty happy about that. He was excited about what we're able to do in-house with the folks we have, and what we can do going forward. So I want to take a minute to recognize some folks. They're more than capable of doing this, but this is on top of all the other stuff that they normally do, right? So while the Dirt Boys were doing this, the grass didn't stop growing. All the stuff they normally do didn't stop. And so it was really a combined effort of doing this work and keeping the rest of the shop running in order to make one of our wing commander priorities happen. So I definitely appreciate the work that goes into it. A lot of times it's not recognized as well as it should be. So I wanted to take a minute and do that today. So next slide. So the Dirt Boys, I'm sorry, I spelled it wrong. I put an S in there. I think spell correct got me. It should be a Z, so I apologize for misspelling that. But if you're here, go ahead and come on up. Stay up here. their boys. You get us? Okay. Next slide. All right.
All right. On behalf of Sergeant Anderson, who can't be here today, his chosen one selected is the post office crew, which I don't see them in the room right now. But they do a lot of stuff behind the scenes that not everybody really sees. Everybody sees them at the finance desk, handing out the mail. Not everybody sees what they do behind, going to get like dispatch, doing official mail, doing stuff for your analysis and whatnot. So there's a lot of stuff behind the scene that they don't really get to recognize. All right, so this goes out to them and for everything that they do day in and day out and all that hard effort that they put forth.
We're in the batteries.
No more battery.
Slide. All right, so I talked a little bit about this during my brief, but a little anecdote about that. I gotta get my microphone.
Paul's gonna kill me for walking too much. So one story. So I'm on the distro list that goes to all the people that work in this particular section, across the Air Force. So all the taskers that come down, I see those come through. And I also see all of the gripes and complaints that go back up the chain about what they're being asked to do. And so I can tell you this particular work section gets a lot of complex, difficult tasks with very short notice. And then I see a lot of across the Air Force people saying, this is ridiculous. We can't do this, having all these questions, all these, issues, gripes, complaints across the board. And then all I see is our team responding with, here's our information, or we're done, or we got this done, well in advance. Never hear any of the same complaints out of them. And there's only 2 people in that section, where a lot of the other folks who are, griping and complaining about the work they're being asked to do have 4, 5, 6 people. So I really want to take a minute to recognize our real property office. So just some closing comments. I want to thank folks for setting this up. So Sergeant Z, man of the hour, bailed me out. I had one job for this, and that was to pick up those license plates, and I didn't do it. And so he was like, I got it, don't worry, sir. I was actually up here thinking to myself, I was like, shit, I forgot to pick those up. I'm gonna have to say, I'm sorry. We're gonna have to go around the corner and pick them up after this is over. And he was like, hey, sir, I got you covered. So you appreciate it, taking care of this and keep me straight. Susanna for taking care of the awards. I appreciate that. A lot of great folks on the team, pull these things together. So definitely appreciate that. With that, I think we're going to skip the rest of the formalities of the script. I think this is the last slide. So next, Boston Buddy is open in the lounge. So anyone that wants to partake, feel free. I'll stick around. So if you had questions, but you didn't want to ask in front of the group, we're going to dismiss here. You're welcome to, hang around as long as I want to, as long as you want to. Ask questions if you have something you want to get some clarification on. So with that, everyone's dismissed. Have a great day.
35-cent wings last week. Get them while they last because they cost.